Hi there. So what we see in front of you on the bench here is my latest acquisition. It's a digital volt, ammeter and power meter which is designed to connect to the mains, and it will basically show you what voltage the mains is, what current you're consuming, and the power you're using, and also the kilowatt hours, which will build up gradually. And the reason I wanted this was I was very curious to know exactly how much power my workshop uses, because although I'm not in it all the time, I'm not using it all the time, there's certain bits of equipment which are permanently on. Let me take you through them all. There's the GPSDO up there, which is running 24 hours a day, and also my HP frequency counter, which has got an oven oscillator which runs continuously. And I've come to believe that it's better to leave them running continuously rather than stress them by turning them off and warming them up again. So that's what I'm doing, and it's obviously consuming a fair few watts. And also the other thing that's on all the time, I've moved this light out of the way, is my other frequency counter, which is the old Racal Dana. I call it Racal Dana. I think it really should be pronounced Racal Dana, but I like the word Dana because it reminds me of the 70s pop singer, Irish pop singer, who won the Eurovision Song Contest in 1970, I believe, with a rather hideous record called All Kinds of Everything. Not many people remember that, I guess, long time ago. But anyway, she had a few minor hits after that in the 70s. And now sadly she's become a politician, which is a bit sad, isn't it? In the Irish Parliament, or whatever they call it, I don't know. But anyway, that's the other thing that's running all the time with the oven oscillator, which is also consuming a few watts. And I've also got, of course, a heater, which I leave on when it's cold in the winter. And that's probably running at about 500 watts. It's on a thermostat. It just keeps the temperature in this workshop about 10 degrees centigrade, maybe a bit less, which is 50 Fahrenheit, and it's just to keep everything nice and dry. And if I want to go in the workshop, I'm not waiting for the place to warm up. So that's running in the winter. So that's the reason I wanted to get this thing here. And the specifications, which is in this bit of paper, say it would work from 80 to 260 volts, current rating of 20 amps, which I find hard to believe, but whatever, and power rating of 4.5 kilowatts, which is fine. I rarely would use more than a kilowatt in this workshop. So yeah, and anyway, that's the diagram of how you connect it up. You've got your AC coming in there, live and neutral. It doesn't say which connections are which is a bit annoying, but I've worked that one out already. And then you connect your load, which will be the whole workshop, on the two other terminals. So basically it has to go between the mains coming in and my what do you call it, distribution box, call it consumer unit in the UK. It's basically a box with trips in it, earth leakage trip, and two current trips, one for the main workshop power and one for the lights. One's 16 amps and the other one's I think about 6 amps for the lights. So what I'm going to do now is do a quick demonstration. I've got it wired up here. I just get the mains over from the safe block. Okay, I'll just show you what I've got wired up here. I've got my safe block over there, which is a handy way just to wire up mains connections fairly safely, and I've got a 60-watt bulb with 2 wires soldered on the bottom. And really, this is highly dangerous. I wouldn't advise anybody to do what I'm doing, but as I've been doing it most of my life, I think I know what I'm doing by now. And I think the last shock, which wasn't fatal, I had was about 5 years ago. So I'm doing pretty well really, and fortunately the trip went, because I just touched the live. Anyway, I remember the first shock I had was when we lived in an old thatched cottage, and it had the old style 15 amp plugs and sockets on the wall. Now in those days, these 15 amp sockets and plugs, they were quite long metal pins on the plugs with no insulation, so you could plug the plug in halfway and touch the live and neutral. And exactly what I did when I was about 7, and that taught me a lot about respect for electricity. But yeah, highly dangerous they were in those days. But now we're all on these 13 amp ones, which is a lot more difficult to touch live and neutral. In fact, I think it would be almost impossible if you plugged it halfway in. So what I'm going to do now is, as I said, I've got this 60-watt bulb. It's the old style incandescent. So I'll just turn my safe block lid down. Bulb comes on, and let's have a look at the meter. And I think that's a pretty reasonable measurement. It's measuring 230 volts, 0.25 amps, 57 watts, which is pretty good. And the one on the right is cumulative, and that will gradually build up. That's 5 watt hours so far. That's the amount of energy I've been using since I first got this thing. And that is non-volatile, which is great. You know, that will work continuously. Even if we have a power cut, that will remember that, and it will just build up and up and up until you reset it, if you want to reset it. So now I've got to try and install this, and I'll just show you where I'm going to try and do it. Okay, that's my main consumer unit, and with all the trips and whatever, and that white wire there is the main feed which comes from the house, and so that's got to be interrupted. The live and the neutral have got to be taken out from in before it gets to the RCD and go into the power meter. And if you can see what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and mount it here. I've marked it out, and I've got to try and cut through this stuff, which is about 1/8 of an inch thick roughly. It's hardboard, and behind there you've got a gap between there and the wooden wall of the shed, which is roughly 2 inches. And when I built this, well, I didn't build a shed, but I insulated the inside by putting in that gap polystyrene insulation, and then cutting all these boards to fit over. And that was quite a job, that was. It took me 3 or 4 weeks to do all that, I reckon, cutting all those to the right size. So what I've got to do is try and cut out a hole to put the meter in. There should be plenty of space as far as depth is concerned, because it's only about 1 inch. The hard bit's going to be cutting in here, around here. There's no way I can get a Dremel in there because of the angle. So I think I have to try and do it with a Stanley knife. It's going to be a long, hard process. But I'll just get on with that, and then we'll see what the results are when I've finished it. Okay, well, I've got the hole cut out. It wasn't too hard to cut that. The worst bit's all these bits of polystyrene. You can see all the polystyrene insulation. You get everywhere, those bits. If I shove the meter in, it does fit. It doesn't fit. I don't want to push it in too far until I've wired it up. Next bit is wiring it all up, which means it's a bit of a hassle. I've broken one of the bloody clips off already on the side of the meter, but there's 2 clips on one on each end. Never mind, I can always glue it in if I have to. But yeah, the worst bit now is wiring it up. I have to turn the power off to the workshop, so I won't have any light in here. I have to work by torchlight. It's the right hassle, and I'll have to drill probably a hole for the incoming mains to go around the back and into the new meter. Okay, I'll get on and do that. Okay, there it is, all wired up and working. And what are we using? 92 watts. Wow, that's a lot of watts. Better turn the lights off and see what happens. Right, lights are off. 57 watts. That's just with the two counters going and the digital clock and the charger for the phone, which I forgot. So 57 watts is a fair bit of power with nothing on in here at all. Well, if I wasn't in here, basically. If I turn the heater on, it'll rocket up now. If it'll focus. 825. Yeah, I think the heater's 750 watts on its lowest setting. So yeah, that wouldn't be on all the time though. That would just be intermittently coming on with the thermostat. Anyway, that's about it. It seems to work fine. What have I used so far? 28 watt hours. Okay, it'd be interesting to see how that accumulates over the following days and weeks. I've got to turn the heater off, it's too hot. Anyway, bye for now, that's the end of the video.